Hi, I'm Reverend Jake Zabel, and welcome to Children's Bible Stories. Hello children, and welcome back to Children's Bible Stories. I'm your host Reverend Jake Zabel, and join with me again today for this story is my little acolyte helper, Heidenreich. Heidenreich, want to wave your hand and say hi? Just wave it behind Moses. There we go. So today we're going to do the story of Moses and the burning bush. So after Moses had left Egypt, he came and lived in the land of Midian, where he met the man named Jethro, and he married Jethro's daughter Zipporah, and Moses worked as a shepherd for Jethro. And one day he was out in the field with Jethro's sheep, and he saw a bush. And what was happening to the bush, Heinrich?
It was a fiery, flamey bush.
Yeah, it was a burning bush. It was on fire. But what was special about this fire?
It wasn't burning up.
Yeah, so Moses saw that the bush was on fire, but the flames didn't seem to harm the bush at all. He says, man, this is something strange. And so he went over to go and check it out. And out of the bush spoke to him the angel of the Lord. Now, we know that this figure, the angel of the Lord, isn't an angel like Gabriel and Michael. It was actually Jesus. And we know that because this figure is called the angel of the Lord, angel meaning messenger. But later when Moses comes and talks to the bush, the figure in the bush says, I am the Lord. So the figure in the bush is both God and the angel of God. Meaning that this figure had to be the second person of the Trinity, and that was Jesus. And so Moses came towards the bush, and firstly, the angel of the Lord, Lord himself, Jesus, in the bush said to him to take off his shoes because this was holy ground. And so Moses took his shoes off. And the bush came and spoke to Moses and said, I want you to go back to Egypt and to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. First he asked the bush, who should I say sent me? And the bush said, say that I am sent you. In the Hebrew, the word is ayah, which means I am, or I am who I am. And so then the Lord, out of the bush, told Moses to say Yahweh sent you. Yahweh meaning he is, or he is who he is. So in other words, when Moses said, well, who should I say sent me? Because in Egypt, the Egyptians had many different pagan gods, many false gods. Which, Heinrich, are they real gods?
No.
Well, what are these false gods?
Just statues of real gods. Real Baal gods.
So what's behind the statues? What were the figures that the people were worshipping when they worshipped the statues? They were?
Demons.
That's right, they were demons that were tricking people. All those different demons who were pretending to be gods, they had different names, and they were gods of different things. So there was like a god of the river, and a god of the sky, and the god of the sand. And when Moses was going back to Egypt, he says, well, the Egyptians are going to ask me, which god sent me? And God said, I am sent you. Meaning that the God that sent Moses isn't just some God with some name over some little area. The God that sent Moses, he just is God. He doesn't have to have a name like the rest of the gods because he's not like them. He is the one and only true God. He is God. He is the God. He is who he is. He is the God who was. He's the God who is now. And he is the God who will be in the future. He just is. And so that's who Moses meant to say sent him. When they say, who sent you? Moses says, he is sent me. The one and only true God sent me. But Moses was still scared to go, and so God gave Moses 2 signs to prove that God was going to go with him and give Moses special powers to make sure Pharaoh would let the people go. Do you remember what the 2 signs were, Heinrich? What was the first sign? It had to do with Moses' staff.
Trying to turn it into a snake.
Yeah, didn't try. Moses had to throw the staff on the ground and it became a slithery snake, and then God told him to pick it up by its tail and it turned back into a staff. Then God told Moses to take his hand and to stick it inside his coat, And then he pulled it out, and what happened to his hand? It was all...
Leprosy.
That's right, it was all covered in leprosy. And then God told Moses to put his hand back in his coat and take it out again, and it was...
Back normal.
That's right. And so these were the signs God gave to Moses to prove to Moses that God would be with him and that God was going to send Moses to do special miracles towards Pharaoh as well. However, Moses still didn't want to go. He said, I can't go because I don't speak very well, God. He did. He started to say to God, I can't speak really well. I stutter and I stutter, God, and I just talk a bit of gibberish and people won't understand me, so you can't send me, God. Now, did Moses really stutter and did Moses really not talk good? Well, we don't know, but the context of the story would make us suggest that Moses is just making excuses. He probably could talk very well. He was just too scared to go and talk. So he's like trying to make excuses to God, saying, you can't send me because people won't understand what I'm saying. I just talk a lot of gibberish, God, and nobody will understand what I say, so you might as well send somebody else. But God said, no. I've chosen you to be my prophet. And if you're really that worried that people aren't going to understand you and that you can't be a good enough speaker, guess what? I'm going to send your brother Aaron with you, and he will do the speaking on your behalf. And so God sent Moses all the way back to Egypt and reunited him with his brother Aaron, and Aaron was going to do the talking for Moses. So when Moses would go and talk to Pharaoh, Moses would say what God said, and he'd tell it to Aaron, and then Aaron would go and tell it to Pharaoh and everybody else. And so that is the story of Moses and the burning bush. Thank you, Acolyte Heidenreich, for helping out with this story. I've been your host, Reverend Jake Zabel. Goodbye and God bless.